Hi guys, it's Just Honest Fiction and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the romance book tag. Alright guys, so over the last 2 years I read a lot of dark fantasy and contemporary romance, and I've really just dove into this genre. So this tag is going to be talking about my favorite and least favorite romance tropes, some of my favorite romance book recommendations, and some romance books that aren't really talked about. Now, this tag was originally created by Falling Over Books, and I will leave her original video linked down below in the description. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's do this romance book tag. Alright, so the first question is, what is the first romance you remember reading? So I was trying out romance for a while before I found one I really liked. Now, what got me into romance was Well Met by Jen DeLuca. I adore this book. It is Grumpy Sunshine. It is following our main character who ends up moving to a town in order to take care of her sister who was recently in a car accident. Now, when she gets there, she finds out that she has to chaperone her niece in this Renaissance fair. And it goes from there. I loved this book. I think it's the perfect romance book to read in the summer. I love the whole Renaissance setting. Now, this is the first book in a series. There are 2 other books. The second one was okay, but it kind of deals with catfishing, which I'm not a huge fan of. And then the third book I just read, it was so good. I believe it's called Well Matched. But overall, this series in general is just really, really good, and I really hope you guys check it out. The last prompt is the last romance that you read. So I'm currently reading Darling Venom. I'm sure I will have finished it by the time this video comes out, but it is a doozy. It is dark. I'm not going to tell you the synopsis only because I didn't know anything about this book going in, and I think the beginning is a lot more impactful if you know nothing. But overall, I'm very much liking it. I'm like 80% done. And then the book that I recently finished is Dark Notes by Pam Godwin. Oh my goodness, I'm obsessed with this book. So I picked this book up, I was listening to it via audio, and I read the entire book in a day, in 5 hours, without realizing how long this book is. It is a student-teacher romance. I am not someone who typically likes that trope. However, it is done so well in this, and if you want the like, I'll hurt her or hurt her and I'll kill you vibes, this book has it. I love the love interest. It's just so good. It's also dark. It has to deal with BDSM. There is non-con. There's a lot, so check trigger warnings before jumping into this. But oh my goodness, this book was so good. Next up is, what book would you recommend to someone who's new to romance? So I have 3 for this. The first one is Beach Read by Emily Henry, then It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and then last is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. So I would pick these 3 books just because when I first went into romance, I assumed all romance books were like fluffy rom-coms. And these 3 books in particular show that romance can be heavy and emotional and still have some spicy scenes, but overall you just feel so connected to the characters, and that's why you want to read these books. So those 3 books are probably some of my top favorites. I actually just recently read Love in Other Words from a recommendation from someone, so thank you so much for recommending that because it was so good. But overall, definitely check out all 3 of those books. They are all just amazing. Next up is a romance you would recommend to another romance reader. So first up, we have All Roads Lead Here, just because I feel like if you've read romance, you'll be okay with dealing with the slow burn in order for there to be such a great payoff. I feel like All Roads Lead Here is just so slow in the beginning, but that's because it's really making you feel connected to the characters. So when there is the big payoff, it's really worth it, but I feel like you have to be okay with that going in before you read it. And then the other one is Credence, just because I feel like if I recommend that book to someone who doesn't read romance, I may be judged a little bit because there's a lot going on with that book. However, it is one of my favorite books. So probably All Roads Lead Here and Credence. An underrated romance you wish more people talked about. So a lot more people are talking about the Ravenhood series, Flock, Exodus, and The Finish Line. However, more people need to talk about it. It's so good. I love it. It was gripping. It was emotional. The boys of summer have my heart, and it's amazing. So highly recommend that series. I think more people need to talk about it. And then anything by Pam Godwin, I feel like I don't hear about her talked about very often, but 2 of her books are probably my all-time favorite when it comes to romance, Dark Notes, and Sea of Ruin. So anything by Pam Godwin. An overrated romance you wish people would stop talking about. So for this, I have The Hating Game. I understand it is very beloved, and I'm sure people will enjoy it. Personally, for me, I just could not get into that book, but that's also because I don't love office setting romances, so that might just be on me. The other book is actually a book that I did very much enjoy, but I feel like it's popular for the wrong reason. So The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, I did very much enjoy this. I thought it was great, but all over Book Talk, people are talking about how spicy and how steamy it is. It's not. It's really not that spicy. There's like one graphic scene. So I wish it wasn't known for that because it's really not that spicy. Overall, though, I did very much enjoy that book, and I do recommend, if you have not read The Love Hypothesis, to check it out. An auto by romance author, I'm going to be super basic, Colleen Hoover. I love almost all the books she has written that I've read so far. I wasn't a huge fan of her thriller, however, all of her romances I absolutely adore. And then also, like I was saying, Pam Godwin, out of the 2 books I've read, I've rated both of them 5 stars. I very much enjoyed them. I think she writes really interesting characters, and then she does a very good job with the spicy scenes. So 2 auto-buy authors, Pam Godwin, Colleen Hoover. And a romance author you used to love and have since abandoned. So for this, I never really loved this author, but I was trying to get into her works, and that is Laura Thalassa. She wrote the Bargainer series starting with Russ Haddock, and then she also wrote the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse series. I just don't like her writing. I'm just not a huge fan of it. I just feel like there is a little bit more smut than there is plot. However, they are entertaining reads, and if you like fantasy romance, I would still give her a shot. I just have to accept that I'm not a huge fan of her works. My favorite romance trope, this is easy, forks proximity, one bed. I love both of those tropes so much. Every book that I've read that has had those 2 tropes, I've really, really enjoyed it. I don't know about that trope. I just love that trope. Absolute favorite. A book that has done that trope very well, we have From Blood and Ash, Serpent and Dove. Those are the 2 that come to mind. But any book that has the one bed trope, I just really enjoy. Romance trope that you can't stand, this is also very easy. It is miscommunication, especially end of the book, 3rd act, miscommunication. It happens so often with not fluffy, but contemporary romance. They really lean on that, and I hate that trope. It is so grating, and it just feels like these characters should know each other well enough to not have this miscommunication issue. I can't stand that trope, and it really does always deduct stars and ratings when I'm reading a book that does that. I just wish we could figure out another way for 2 characters to have some sort of conflict without relying on miscommunication. Next up is your problematic favorite, and that is this book. So, Haunting Adeline, and this is by H.D. Carlton. I don't think it's actually problematic if you go into it knowing that it is dark, dark romance, and check the trigger warning. So I posted this on Instagram. I had a couple people message me saying like I shouldn't be promoting this book. I think if you know what you like and you know what this is about going into it, it shouldn't be considered problematic. If you know you're someone who doesn't like the things that are talked about and the trigger warnings, don't read this book. But overall, I still very much enjoyed it. I did enjoy this one more than Hunting Adeline, but I knew going into it what Hunting Adeline was going to be about, and it just wasn't for me. But I'm sure there are people that do enjoy it. So I still like this book. I'm still going to recommend this book. Just definitely check trigger warnings. Next prompt is a book that everyone loved that had you scratching your head. This was easy, and that is Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. Why did they purr? I could not. I'm happy this book was so short, so I was able to get through it, and I understand why there are some people that did enjoy it. I think it was fun. I just don't understand how so many people are loving this book to the point that I think it's now picked up by like a publishing house. It has a completely different cover. I think there's also like 22 books in this series and counting. I could barely get through this first one, and I can't imagine continuing with the series. But you know what? If you like it, good for you. You guys have a ton of books to read in this series, so no hate. But overall, I just am not a fan of this series. A place or person you go to for romance book recommendations. So first, I started using Goodreads this year, and I've gotten a lot of different recommendations from their like recommendation section. So I guess they look at what the books I've read and then are able to figure out what other books I would like. I found Black Sunshine that way and a few other books that I really enjoyed. Also, you guys are awesome, and a lot of you comment and tell me books that you think I would enjoy. There are a few of you in particular that I 100% trust your opinion, because every book you have recommended I have absolutely loved. So thank you guys so much for that. And then also there are some booktubers I watch. So Live a Novel Life, Tori, and then Peace Love Books and Riley Marie, all of them, they talk about romance books, mainly romance books. So if you're looking for romance recommendations, definitely check them out. But they're some of my favorites. Next prompt is, what is a romance book cover you love? So personally, I prefer discreet covers. There are two books in particular that you can tell are romance that I love the cover. So the first one is Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. This is a pirate romance, and it's just, the cover is absolutely beautiful. It's also matte, which I don't know if you can tell from my camera, but I really enjoyed this book. Like I said, it's a pirate romance following this girl whose father is a pirate and ends up dying very early in the book, so she decides to take on his mantle and becomes this very revered pirate. Now, she ends up being chased by her husband, but while she's running away from her husband, she gets taken by a pirate hunter, and it goes from there, and it's very spicy, very well written, and I absolutely adored this book. The other book cover that I really, really love is Black Sunshine. See if my camera will focus, there we go. And I actually read this originally I listened to it on audio, but I was reading along with my Kindle, and I didn't know what the cover looked like. And this cover is completely stunning. It's like a skull with like roses coming out. This is a paranormal romance following a girl that, unbeknownst to her, was raised by witches, and one day she's kidnapped by a vampire who shows her what she really is and kind of helps her fulfill her full potential. And I love this. It's like dark, edgy, spicy Twilight, but better. Highly recommend. Next up is a romance book that you've reread more than twice. So I haven't actually read any romance book more than twice. I did reread the entire Flock series by Kate Stewart. I'm not going to go into what that book's about or that series is about because, once again, I feel like it's better going into that book without having any idea. But I did very much enjoy it, and like I said, I read it twice. I'm obsessed with that series. A book that I do plan on rereading is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and then Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover, just because those books were so emotional, and I'll probably end up rereading Beach Read at some point. Next up is Best Romance Audiobook, and that is Games We Play, and this is by Dana Eastley. If you know, you know. Not going to go into it. It's a very dark novella, and the audiobook is phenomenal. That's it. And last up is your all-time favorite romance. That is impossible for me to pick. I will say anything by Colleen Hoover, anything by Penelope Douglas, the Flock, Ravenhood series, all-time favorite series. It Ends With Us would probably be my all-time favorite Colleen Hoover book. Credence or Birthday Girl being my top Penelope Douglas book, and then All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata is also top tier, and then Dark Notes, which I also already talked about, by Pam Godwin, and Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin are just some of my favorites, but there are so many amazing romance books, and I can't wait to discover more. Alright guys, that's it for my romance book tag. Please let me know down in the comments below if you have read any of these books, or please give me some more romance book recommendations. I want to get into historical romance, but I'm a little hesitant because the few I've read I haven't been a fan of, but I know there are more out there that I will love. Now, I said this already, but I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.